At a fundraising event today, Joe Biden told supporters that he hoped his decision to forego an in-person appearance at the Democratic National Convention would set an example. And I'm quoting from the start of the process, "We have made it clear science matters." He said the coronavirus has upended not only this presidential campaign season, but also millions of lives in even the most rural parts of the country. For more on how voters outside the Beltway are thinking about the pandemic and its political ramifications, I'm joined by Gary Abernathy. He's in Hillsboro, Ohio. He's a contributing columnist for the Washington Post. And Sarah Smarsh in Topeka, Kansas. She's a freelance journalist and author of the book Heartland. Welcome to both of you. It's great to see you. Let's start, Sarah Smarsh, by talking about what is on the minds of voters you're hearing from. The pandemic, the numbers were grim again today. Over 1,300 deaths were reported overnight, something like 53,000 new cases in one day. But what are voters saying?
Well, here in my state of Kansas, this is one of the states where new cases is on the uptick, unfortunately. And in this region, just like across the country, I think it's certain that the pandemic is foremost on voters' minds. That, of course, is a sort of twin issue with the economy, the present state of which we can't separate from the public health crisis. But certainly the pandemic and its ramifications is the talk on Main Street, as well as the stuff of local politics. We've had here in Kansas, which has a split party control of state government, a lot of back and forth, basically battles between a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature, Democratic mayors and Republican-leaning counties. So it feels, I suspect, the way it feels in the rest of the country, which is like there's no federal leadership and it's sort of a mess.
So, Gary Abernathy, what about where you are in, Southern Ohio?
Yes, Southern Ohio, Judy, and thanks for having me on. Maybe a little different attitude here. People are talking about the pandemic. They take it seriously, but it's also an area where you're going to have a lot of people push back, worried about the violation of their constitutional rights. There's been a lot of pushback in this area on mandates from Governor DeWine about masks and so on, that type of thing, which again, people take it seriously. But they also think that, the constitutional liberties have maybe been not taken as seriously as they could. They don't like the idea they've been, ordered not to go to work, been thrown out of work. The economy's been shut down. So I think people here, their attitude is treat us like adults, give us the information that we should have, tell us what the health experts say, and then let us decide for ourselves how to deal with it.
Sarah Smarsh, Kansas, are you hearing any of that conversation where people you talk to, and how much are they connecting what's going on to what's happening in Washington?
Sure. Well, I think that here the controversy over whether, say, a mask is in order in these times certainly tracks along party lines. What I would say, if I go to a farmer's market or somewhere, a public place of commerce, this is a state where a governor attempted to make a statewide mandate, and then there was pushback from other jurisdictions, and that was that sort of debate that I was referencing a moment ago. So at the moment, local places are sort of at the mercy of their local government. And what I would say is, for those who feel that a mask infringes upon their personal liberties in a way that outweighs their responsibility to their neighbors, that they are reliably conservative. And so that tells me that they probably are listening to messaging from Washington. On the other hand, I would say that that's not the same thing as saying that all conservatives refuse to wear a mask. There's certainly been some, I think, kind of erosion of fellowship of the president, perhaps for that reason.
And I want to pick up on that with you, Gary, in terms of the economy and how people are seeing what's happened to the economy, the loss of jobs. To what extent do they connect it to decisions being made by President Trump, by Democrats?
I think, again, keep in mind, I'm in a part of the country that is very firm Trump country. So they see things in terms of maybe a little more of an effort to intentionally hurt Trump through closing the economy. You know, a few months ago, everyone agreed that the biggest thing Trump had going for him was a strong economy. And so the quick effort to kind of crash it, to turn it on its head, to throw people out of work is seen here by a lot of people, right or wrong, as an effort to hurt Trump. So there's a resistance to that. On the other hand, Judy, as has been reported elsewhere, in rural areas, we do see coronavirus cases rising. So people are starting to notice, well, okay, you know, it's a real thing. It's not just in the cities. It's coming to the rural areas too. And I think the more that those numbers rise a little bit, a little less people will blame it all on a political effort.
And just finally, to both of you, Sarah Smarsh, we are getting closer to the conventions, to honest to goodness election season. Joe Biden is staying put. He's not going to his convention. President Trump apparently isn't either. What are people, how much are they looking at the partisan divide right now and these two candidates?
Well, I can tell you that in contrast to 4 years ago during the election leading up to the 2016 casting of votes, I see fewer Trump signs for whatever that's worth as a sort of qualitative measure along two-lane blacktop highways in rural Kansas where I live, as well as in towns and cities. That doesn't mean that folks have swung left necessarily. I have seen a lot of signs for far right and certainly conservative leaning candidates who are running for state offices or representative offices. We actually just had a primary yesterday, and the Republican candidate for our now open U.S. Senate seat, who was sort of favored by establishment Republicans over the more extremist Chris Kobach, won, which is seen as a boon for Republicans in that race against the Democrat Barbara Bollier. But ultimately, I do feel like things have shifted away from embracing Trump since 2016.
How do you see, finally, Gary Abernathy, the Trump popularity and Joe Biden's presence now?
Well, I'm sure Sarah's right about maybe where she's at in certain parts of the country, but right here, the enthusiasm is unabated. The signs are up and have been for quite a while. The old "Make America Great Again" signs have been replaced by Trump 2020 or "Keep America Great." People are very anxious and motivated. The enthusiasm level will be high here in Southern Ohio. And I think the decision by Vice President Biden so far to kind of run, if he was in the White House, you'd call it a Rose Garden strategy, can't last for too much longer. I think the media will pressure him and to come out more. But right now, in areas like where I'm at, it's not doing him any favors.
Well, we shall see. We're all watching all this with great interest, as you can imagine, as this very unusual election year unfolds. Gary Abernathy, Sarah Smarsh, thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy.